Hello, good day everyone. It's Professor Gray here with you, and it's week number 12 of our practical English class. We're moving along quite well. Can you believe it's already week 12? Kind of scary, actually. We started off, it was still cold, and now it's kind of getting warm and muggy. Summer feels like it's around the corner, even though it's been kind of rainy over the weekend. Okay, so we're moving right along here. We're getting close to the end of our study part from the textbook. We're going to continue along where we left off. As I've said before, I've given you the date of the final exam, the date and time. The room number is R312, and you know your date, you know your time, so please mark it in the calendar. The exam will be in class, unless the university changes something at the last minute. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll talk more about the exam later, as it gets closer. We still have about a month to go, so right now focus mostly on the work each week, but also a little review every week is a really good idea. The exam will be comprehensive. It means everything that we've studied will be on the test, like a comprehensive TOEFL test with all question types possible. Okay, page 82, please. Territoriality. Territory means land, right? T-E-R-R, ter means land. E.T., have you ever seen E.T.? The extraterrestrial, extra outside, terrestrial, land. E.T. came from another land, another planet. Right? So maybe you also know the English word for Jijunghae, Mediterranean, okay? Just like in Korean, middle, ter, earth, sea, Mediterranean Sea, Middle Earth Sea. The fight for exclusive control of a particular area is explaining what territoriality is. So B, it's a definition of the term that was stated, territoriality, comma, definition. So when you see a word at the top, the title, and it might be a new word or a difficult word, expect a definition. It's a scientific type passage, and it's an academic passage, so usually there's a definition at the beginning. So even if you're not sure what the word means, in your mind, you should be looking for that definition in the first paragraph, right near the beginning. And here it is, word, comma, definition, B. Number 15 is B. Instead shows a change, A, contradiction. Instead rely on non-lethal contest. So instead of what? Instead of fighting to death, killing, instead, opposite, non-lethal. Now, maybe lethal is a new word, but you can guess that lethal means deadly. Because to death, instead, opposite, non-opposite, opposite. Instead means opposite, non means opposite, and so it's like a negative times a negative. They cancel each other out, and the other two words mean the same thing. Okay, fight to death and lethal. Lethal means deadly. Right? Lethally, this poison is lethal, or this snake bite is lethal. It will kill you. Then they talk about noise-making maneuvers. Maneuvers are postures or motions with your body, strategies, basically, in a fight, in this case. Posturing is, again, poses or positions, but maneuvers can also involve poses or positions as well as attacks. Most bird species are known to be territorial to some degree, a little bit. To some degree means a little bit. Although the territorial behaviors exhibited, shown by most species are limited to singing contests. Now, we're talking about fighting for territory here. Animals fighting for territory. In your mind, you probably see, bears and lions and sharks and all these scary animals, but singing contests, that doesn't sound so violent, does it? Exactly. Number 17 is D. Some actions are not very aggressive. Wouldn't it be nice if all species just had a singing contest instead of wars and battles and fights? But anyway, it clearly, when you read singing contest in your mind, you have a very non-violent picture of territoriality. The swan, on the other hand, opposite. Okay, so the swan here is opposite. In other words, is very aggressive. Okay, most birds use singing contests, which are not aggressive. Now the swan is very aggressive, and on the other hand, tells you also it's the opposite. B, very aggressive. It may look elegant and serene. Serene means calm, sort of relaxed. They glide in a very calm way across the lake, but they are rough and they will fight to the death with their necks entwined. So you have two swans coming at each other and they wrap their necks around each other. Entwined is when you wrap something around. Twine is string or rope. So when you have string and rope all mixed together, maybe behind your computer or your TV, you have a lot of wires. Looks like a big nest, right? That's entwined. But here the two swans entwine their necks, wrap their necks around each other, and try to kill each other. Mortal injury, mortal, deadly, right? M-O-R-T, mort, means dead or death. Mortality, okay? Mortician, a lot of words in English referring to death with M-O-R-T, mortuary. Okay, necks entwined here. Again, you get this image of two swans wrapping their necks around each other, trying to kill each other. D, a mental image, a picture of two swans. Ella Deloria. Now, most of you finished this in really good time. I was impressed. This is a very tough one. Okay, if you found it difficult, don't feel bad. It was. It was a very long passage with a lot of difficult vocabulary, and there were only 10 questions. So you only had 15 minutes for a long passage. Let's take a look at it. Now, there's also a lot of cultural and geographical things here that might have been confusing. Again, this was not an easy passage, right? So nobody should feel bad. If you did well on it and you finished it in time, great job. You're doing very well. This is a much more advanced level passage, I believe. Posthumous. In the first sentence, posthumous means after death, after dying. So, for example, when an actor dies and then a movie comes out with him in it, was that Heath Ledger a few years ago was in the Dark Knight movie, and then he died when they were filming it, I think, and then you watch the movie with him in it, even though he had died. That's posthumous. I think there was an actor in the Fast and Furious movies, same thing happened. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, that's posthumous. So this book came out after she died. She wrote it, of course, before she died, but then it came out, it was published many, many years later. So what do we know here? Her already established reputation in the academic arena of linguistics and ethnology. These are very academic topics, okay? So she was an academic translator of sorts who was very famous, and I'll explain why later. She was very famous within her field. It's not like everybody on the street knows her. But people who study linguistics, people who study Native American history and culture and language, they know her. She's very well known. But the book that we're talking about, Water Lily, was a novel. So number one is B. Before this novel, or while she was alive, before the novel came out posthumously, she was much more famous. She achieved acclaim, B, acclaim, fame, for her transcriptions than her novel. Yes, she translated Native American Indian stories into like their folklore into English. And when we read this, it'll talk about why that's such a big deal. Folklore, Chale Donghua, sort of a cultural tale. Let's move on. Paragraph 2. However, always shows a change of direction and opposite. C. C, number 2 is C. She was raised in a different one. However, A, she was born into Nakota speaking family. However, change, opposite, different. Lakota, people in North Dakota. That's confusing, I know. So, in the US, we have the Rocky Mountains on the west side, and then the Mississippi River on the east side, and after the Mississippi, we have more mountains, Appalachians. But that big space in the middle we call the Great Plains. Plains because they're flat, right? That big center of America is basically flat, the Great Plains. Now, the Indians from that area we sometimes refer to as the Plains Indians. There were many, many tribes, but they were all culturally similar, like cousins. Their language was similar, cultures were similar, the climate where they lived was almost the same from one tribe to the next. So you had the similar sounding names like the Nakota, the Lakota, the Dakota. And when we refer to all of them, you see this word S-I-O-U-X, S-I-O-U-X. That's pronounced Sioux, Sioux. I know it's kind of strange spelling, but anyway, Sioux refers to all those Great Plains Indians from the center of North America, also in Canada as well, southern Canada. Now, let's move down a bit. Deloria mainly spoke Nakota at home and Lakota when she was out in the community. So there's 2 languages. Probably they are similar, but they are still 2 different languages. She was well-versed there. Well-versed means understand well, knowing well, in the cultural traditions of her Sioux ancestors. Then, in parentheses, you have an example of one of these cultural traditions. Okay, the cultural traditions, and then that whole big sentence, shaded sentence, that's an example of one cultural tradition. D. Number 3 is D. And it's quite interesting, actually. Just think about it. What's the basic unit of every society, every culture? It's the family unit, right? And so your family forms the basis of your life, when you're a child. But what does the word family mean? Right? It means one thing to you or one thing to somebody else. Different cultures will have different definitions of what that word means. And in the Sioux Indians, all of your father's brothers are also father, not uncle, father. Your father's brother is your father. Your mother's sister is your mother. And all their children are your brothers and sisters. They're not your cousins. Wow. So, when we think of a family, basic family in one unit here, their unit is much, much bigger. But now imagine how that completely changes your life. How you view life, how you do everything is different based on such fundamental differences in how you look at a family in this case. Very interesting. Moving on, after graduating from Columbia, this is a time reference, so it's showing chronological order. A, number 4 is A. After, quite often, a passage will be written in chronological order, time order. She was in a unique position to take on this task. Take on means to accept a job, perform a duty, to do this job or this task that was asked of her by Boas. Then it gets a little confusing perhaps here. This bilingual collection, the research, the Dakota texts was bilingual because she was fluent in Lakota and she was fluent, of course, in English. So Lakota and English are the bilingual texts. Bilingual means 2 languages. Number 5 is D, Lakota and English. Now, she was able to elicit stories from venerable Sioux elders. Okay, elicit means to bring out. to draw out. Like a teacher elicits answers from students. If I say, what is the answer for number 5? And the student answers, then I'm eliciting that information. I'm pulling it from the student. So she had to understand these stories by, well, asking old people, venerable, very highly honorable, high-level old people in the society, in the community. Now, it's very interesting here. Without the need for translators and with an awareness of appropriately respectful behavior, she listened to the stories as numerous generations had before her, and then, unlike previous generations, recorded them in writing, initially in Lakota and later in English. So, first of all, she had to get the stories from the old people. Now, in these societies, this is their education system. This is how culture, knowledge is passed down. It's passed down through stories and rituals and folklore and so on, ceremonies. This is how children learn. They don't learn in schools with books and reading and writing. They learn through listening. And who do you listen to? Well, you listen to the older people because they have the knowledge and experience. But if you want to gain that knowledge, you have to know all the proper, the polite and respectful way to ask questions and to listen and all that. In Korean, if you're talking to an older person, you change some things in your grammar, maybe some vocabulary. You speak in a different manner than you would, of course, to somebody in your own your own age. And in these societies, it's much the same, but even more pronounced, perhaps. I know that if you don't address them the right way, the older people, they don't get angry, right? They won't scold you. They just ignore you. It's like if you don't speak respectfully to them, they don't hear you. You don't exist. You're not there. Very interesting, huh? Yeah. Anyway, so she knew how to talk to them. She go, please tell me the story. Then she wrote it down in the Indian language, Lakota, which nobody had done before because they didn't have written languages before. It was all oral. All knowledge was passed down through speaking and listening. So first she wrote them down in this sort of new written language. The Indian written languages the written language was relatively recent, the last 150 years. And then she translated them into English. Wow, even more difficult. She transcribed them basically, as they were told, but with her own understanding of the nuances, the subtleties of what was being told. Nuance in Korean, I think it's nuance. My pronunciation is terrible, I'm sorry. But like a small, subtle change in meaning. By using certain words or certain grammar, you can change the meaning a little bit. Okay, so this is why it's a big deal. Nobody had ever done this before, and it enabled people to learn so much more about Indian culture and whatnot, their education and how they think and why they are who they are. It was a very big breakthrough. Moving on, number 6 is A, qualified. She had the knowledge and the ability to talk properly and ask properly, respectfully, to elicit the stories. Please tell me this story so I can write it down. And she knew how to do that. She was qualified. A, number 6A. Number 7, the rest we can go through a bit quickly here. Number 7, C. Okay, these were written in 1937 and published in 1993. That's 56 years later. That's long after it was transcribed. Number 7, C. Number 8 is also C. The Prairie Dogs talks about warrior society, ceremonies, and dances. Another word for ceremony is ritual. C, number 8 is C. It provides insight, deep information, knowledge into the rituals, the ceremonies, and the dances. Number 9, B, right? 40 years. Well, 1988 minus 40 is 1948. So number 9 is B. And number 10, A. Yeah, death of her husband in a smallpox epidemic. A really difficult, harsh life. Very terrible, actually. We talked about that. Remember the pre-Columbian Americans and the diseases that killed so many of them? Those epidemics, right? This is an example right here of what we studied a few weeks ago. These epidemics. In this case, smallpox epidemic that killed so many Native Americans. And in her novel, she talks about that. She gives an example of that with the main character. Okay, once again, that was not easy. There's a lot of cultural things in there, a lot of history, linguistics, all sorts of things. If you did well on that, you're doing a great job. That was a tough one. If you had a little trouble with it, don't worry. We're working our way up. It takes time, and just making the effort and finishing it is very good at this point. Okay, page 88, Pal Pal. Early autos. Early again. Remember, early teachers from a long time ago. These are autos from a long time ago. The first automobiles will be called the early autos. The first ones that were made. 150 years ago now. You know, the first automobile was actually made in Germany, and the last name of the two men, one of them, the last name was Benz, B-E-N-Z, and that company still exists today, of course. Very interesting. Okay, go ahead, early autos. I want you to do this now, and there are 13 questions, so give yourself 20 minutes to read early autos, answer the questions, then come back, and I'll go over it with you, the passage and the answers. Okay, go ahead. Okay, early autos, horseless carriages. Now, before automobiles, automobile means self-moving. It moves by itself. It doesn't need a horse. We had what we called horse-drawn carriages. Horse-drawn. Drawn means pull, like a drawer, or to withdraw money from your bank. Horse-pulled carriage, horse-drawn carriage, carriage to carry, right? You would carry things or carry people in a carriage. They were called at the time the automobiles were called horseless carriages. Interesting, a horseless carriage, a carriage without a horse. It's a good thing we don't call them that today. It sounds kind of strange, I think, and also cumbersome. It's sort of long to say, hey, let's go for a drive in your horseless carriage. These were considered frivolous playthings, toys. Frivolous means sort of unnecessary or trivial. Trivial means like not really necessary or extra. At that time, it was just like a fun toy for rich people. Everybody else had horses and carriages. Who had them? Only the wealthy class. Very, very wealthy people. Number one, B. Okay? A, C, and D are not wealthy. B is very, very wealthy. Moving on. Number three, they talk about from 5B, these early automobiles required repairs so frequently, both because their engineering was at an immature stage and because roads were unpaved and often in poor condition. So the roads were very, very rough. Number 3 is D. Number 4 is C, four-legged engine. Horses had 4 legs, of course. So a horse was like an engine, right? Basically, a horse was an engine before the automobile engine was invented. C. And number 5, also C. As we said, the roads were often in poor condition, and then these horrendous road conditions, connection. Horrendous means terrible, horrible, awful. Very bad condition, horrendous road condition, perfect connection at 5C. And they grooved, rutted, and bumpy roads. They didn't have pavement and cement, whatnot back then. It was all just rough dirt. So these early automobiles, they broke down a lot. The ride was very uncomfortable, right? It's just imagine like computers. The first computers were the size of a room and very complicated to use, and It just took time and development to get them better and better so they could be smaller and more portable and easier for everybody to use, and so on. Number 6, paragraph 2. Many other automobiles. A, automobiles at the beginning of the 20th century. We're referring to the main topic here of the paragraph. Number 7, they had to be steam engineers. A, knowledge of steam engineering. Steam engineer has knowledge of steam engineering. Number 8, now if you just read the question here, benches on wheels, you get an image. A bench, like a park bench, very simple, not comfortable, on wheels. Doesn't sound like a very comfortable automobile. It sounds very simple and very uncomfortable. Number 8 is B, neither complex. Complex is like today's automobiles are very complex, of course, and very comfortable compared to a bench on wheels. Number 8, B. Incessant, C-E-S-S, to cease means to stop, right? Cease, stop. So in means not stopping. Incessant is D, continual, not stopping. Continue, continue, continue. Number 10, rife with means literally full of. Rife with problems, full of many problems. A. Now, the next one is interesting here. They're talking about speed limits. So these early automobiles, back then, they had to give speed limits. 20 miles per hour in open areas in the countryside. So that's 32 kilometers per hour. It's not very fast. And that's out in the countryside. 15 miles per hour in villages, smaller towns, that's 24 kilometers per hour. And 10 miles per hour in the city, that's 16 kilometers per hour. Imagine in Seoul, if the speed limit in Seoul, everywhere in Seoul was 16, 16, not 60, 16 kilometers per hour. You can almost walk faster than that. Well, you can ride a bicycle faster than that. That's very slow. But what does this mean? D. Still today, D is true, of course. It was safer for cars to travel faster where there was less traffic and fewer people. Well, that rule back then is, of course, the rule today. Of course, it's safer to travel where there's fewer cars and fewer people. That's why you can go faster in the countryside than you can in the city. Number 12, B. Yeah, they needed these laws, okay. The measures taken, measures means laws. However, the measures taken, the laws that were made, were less a means of limiting use of the automobile. They didn't try to limit the use. They were trying to control the use because the use of it increased dramatically. It went up very quickly. Dramatically means greatly, much, a lot. So the popularity increased incredibly fast in the US in a very short period of time. B, the popularity, the use of automobiles grew so fast. The laws, the measures, the popularity, popularity, use increased dramatically, grew so fast. Exactly, restatement. And number 13, which is not true, C. Yeah, no, automobile manufacturing was the top industry in 1920. No, it was in the middle 1920s. Okay, in the middle 1920s, not in 1920. C, 13 is C. Okay, let's move on. Any questions about that, please ask me when you send your email this week. Good work. Skill 9, summary information. Now, at the beginning of the semester, I showed you how you have your main thesis, and then underneath the thesis, there are usually 2 or 3 key points of support. And under those key points of support, you'll have many smaller details and facts and whatnot. So you have the small details supporting the main points and the main points supporting the main thesis. Skills 9 and 10 are focusing on these points of support. So skill 9 are the main points of support. What are those 3 boxes underneath the thesis? What are the main points supporting the thesis statement? Okay, I'm going to let you read page 91, The Great Compromise. Take a couple minutes, read it, and try to answer page 92. I think 3 or 4 minutes should be enough. Go ahead. When you answer this type of question, the absolute first most important key point is on page 92, the bold sentence in the box. Okay? That's what the answer is all pointing towards. You must read that and you must understand it, and you must remember that all the right answers connect to that bold sentence. This passage discusses how the legislative branch of the U.S. government came to be organized. Now, if you read it, The Great Compromise, you learned that, we had big states and small states. And the big states said, well, we have more people, we should have more power. And the small states said, no, all states should be equal, or we don't want to join. You can see where both had their point. Well, they compromised. We call it in American history, the Great Compromise. The big states compromised and the small states compromised. And now we have 2 houses of Congress. We have, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, we have the Senate, equal. Every state gets 2. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Big state, 2. Small state, 2. And then we have the House of Representatives, where bigger states have many, smaller states maybe only 1. I gave you an example before. California, I believe, has 53 representatives. Montana, where my family lives, has 1, even though Montana is also a very big state geographically. This is the Great Compromise. The answers, well, the main point here is A, the first one, or number 1. Compromise was reached, where both bigger and smaller states got some advantages. Number 2, many different plans were submitted. I'm sure it was. They don't talk about that, and that's not a main point here. Number 3, yes, smaller populations wanted each state to be equal. That's the Senate. Each state has 2 representatives in the Senate, equal. And number 6, states with larger populations wanted representation to be based on population. Okay, that's the House of Representatives. 1, 3, and 6. There's no New Jersey plan in the passage. And number 5 is wrong. That's the Senate is equal for each state, not the House of Representatives. 1, 3, and 6. Okay, you, again, as always, you should read this introduction, read page 91, 92, and then look at the shaded box on page 93. Very good, very important. Also, it tells you how the point system works for these questions. So you must read page 93 as part of your homework. Really, the best way to to learn these is just to practice them, to experience them. So look at page 94, Island Plant Life. Okay, I want you to read this and answer the question. Choose 3, answer the question. Remember, the key here is the bold sentence in the box. You must read it carefully, and the answers must connect to that. Go ahead, page 94. Okay, this passage discusses the ways that plant life is able to develop on islands. Okay, plant life developing on islands. If the answer doesn't connect to that, it's wrong. Look at number 1 and number 6. Number 1, some seeds are able to float great distances in the air. True. Number 6, some plant seeds are carried to islands by the wind. Also true. It's kind of the same thing. Number 6 says plant seeds are carried to islands. Number 1 doesn't say anything about islands, just floating in the air. Yeah, they can float in the air. Maybe they land in the ocean. Maybe they don't get to an island. They stay on the mainland, whatever. Number 1 does not talk about islands. Therefore, it does not talk about island plant life. Number 6, does. Seeds going to the island by the wind. The seeds create the plants. Number 6, yes. Number 1, no. Look at number 2 and number 5. Number 2, some plant life existed before islands were cut off from larger bodies of land. Like here in Korea on the west coast, there are so many islands, but thousands of years ago they would have been connected to the mainland of Korea, and but then the ocean got higher, and now they're islands. But the plant life was part of, will be very similar or the same as the plant life on the mainland here in Korea. This is number 2. Yes, plant life, islands. Okay, it talks about everything it needs to mention. Number 5, some islands were created when rising water cut them off from larger bodies of land. Sure, it's the same process, but this does not talk about plant life. Number 2 talks about plant life. Number 5 does not. Number 2 is right. Number 5 is not right. So we have number 6 and number 2. And the last one, number 3, some islands have many different varieties of plants. Yeah, but it doesn't talk about developing the plant life. And number 4, birds sometimes carried seeds to islands. Okay, yeah, they carry the seed, they drop it, the plant grows on the island. Yes, number 2, number 4, number 6. How'd you do? Okay, let's do another one. Ben & Jerry. Now, you can now finally get Ben & Jerry's ice cream in Korea. It took a long time. I was excited when I saw it. It's very popular in the US. And they're popular because, well, it's good ice cream. And also, they have a very good reputation as a company and as owners. And you're going to see why they have such a positive reputation here. So go ahead, page 95, Ben & Jerry. Take 5 minutes, maybe 5-6 minutes. Read it, answer the question, and come back. Now, what's the key here? Read the bold sentence. Everything starts with that. This passage discusses Ben & Jerry's unconventional company. Unconventional means not normal, not regular. It's not, doesn't mean negative. It doesn't have to be negative or positive. It could be either one, depending on the situation. But unconventional basically just means irregular, different. Okay? So every answer must connect to that. Number 1, they each had a personal commitment to social causes. That's great, that's true, but that is personal, is not their business, is not their company. Separate. Personal life, business life, not the same. Number 1, no. Number 2, they began their business with little background and investment. Yeah, business, unconventional. Yeah, it's pretty unusual to not have a lot of investment and not have a lot of background. Sure, that's unconventional, and that's their business. 2, yes. Number 3, they believe strongly in producing a very high quality product. Okay, yeah. Doesn't everybody or every company want to do that? I think so. Do you know any companies that say we want to produce a low quality product? No. So number 3 is very conventional, not unconventional. So number 3 doesn't work. Number 4, they had a salary structure, company, that limits the salaries of high-level executives. Unconventional, especially in the US. Executives make a lot of money in the US. Number 4 is unconventional, and it is their company, yes. Number 5, they set aside, they reserved, saved, a noteworthy portion, a significant amount of their profits for social causes. This is profits, means their company's money, and this is unfortunately unconventional. Not a lot of companies do this. Most companies, I think, should, but anyway, that's a different story. So the answers are 2, 4, and 5. Number 6 is not true, according to the passage. If you get a chance, try, if you like ice cream, if you can find it. I think some of the supermarkets and convenience stores will sell Ben & Jerry's. It's a little bit expensive here because it's imported, but it is very, very good ice cream. Give it a shot. The bald eagle, page 96. Okay, this is the symbol of the U.S. This is our national animal, our national bird, And I want you to read about this. Two key words here: demise, which means a reduction, a drop, going down, decrease, and then resurgence, which means coming back up. Up, back up again, going up, surging again. So going down, 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 and then back up, up, up again. Demise and resurgence. Go ahead, take about 5 minutes and answer the questions. Okay, this passage discusses radical shifts in population that the bald eagle has undergone. Radical, big, extreme shifts, changes in population, in numbers, that the bald eagle has undergone, has experienced. Yeah, they went from so many down to almost none. That's a radical shift. That's the demise. And then back up again, the resurgence. Another radical shift. Number one, the numbers of bald eagles, okay, population, numbers of, was greatly reduced, radical shift. In the 60s, at least in part due to the effects of a pesticide. Number one, yeah, talks about radical shifts in bald eagle populations. One. Number two, the pesticide DDT was successful in removing undesirable insects. Yeah, so what? I mean, does it talk about the bald eagle? No. Does it talk about bald eagle population? Number two, no. Number three, the bald eagle was named as the national symbol of the U.S. in the late 18th century. True, but again, nothing about population or radical shifts in population. Number three, no. Number four, a certain pesticide, DDT, has had a negative effect on the number of bald eagles. Yes, the population, the number means the amount, the population, the negative effect caused the demise. Number four, yes. Number five, two different pieces of legislation were enacted 33 years apart. True, but does this number five even mention bald eagle? No, it doesn't. That's what they refer to, but it doesn't say bald eagle. It doesn't say anything about radical shifts in population. Number six, legislation was specifically designed to protect the bald eagle, okay, population, as well as to outlaw the pesticide DDT. This helped the resurgence, the radical shift back up. Number one, number four, and number six. 1, 4, and 6. We're going to skip passage 4. There's some problems with it, so don't worry about passage 4. Let's move on to page 98, complete schematic tables. Now, remember skill number 9 were those main points of support, right? Thesis statement, then 3 main points of support underneath it, supporting it. Underneath those 3 mains of support, we have the details, the supporting details and facts, the smaller points. That's skill 10. So skill 10 now, if you look at page 99, they give you here there's 2 main points of support, 2 examples. Rhamphorhynchoids, very difficult to say, and pterodactyloids. These are 2 sort of dinosaur-like animals from a long time ago. So those are the 2 main points, rhamphorhynchoids and pterodactyloids. Now you need to fill in the chart for the supporting details. Which smaller points support those 2 bigger main points? Go ahead, it's a very short paragraph, pterosaurs. Read the paragraph and answer, fill in the box on page 99. Go ahead. Okay, the largest flying reptiles ever to exist were the pterosaurs, these close relatives of dinosaurs. So they were not dinosaurs. They were close relatives of dinosaurs. Number 7 is wrong. The bottom, the last one on page 99, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, they were not dinosaurs. They were relatives of dinosaurs. With lightweight frames of hollow bone, could have wingspans. This is your wingspan. From one point out here to the other point out here, wingspan. 12 meters and could weigh 100 kilograms. Can you imagine what it would have been like living back in those days? birds that had 12 meters is the size of this classroom. That's a big bird. Plus it weighed 100 kilograms. I wouldn't want that flying after me. There were two kinds of pterosaurs. The earlier was the long-tailed and short-headed rhamphorhynchoids. Okay, earlier. Long-tailed, short heads. Number 6, long-tail and short head. And number 3, the Triassic to the Jurassic. They first appeared in the Triassic period and have become extinct by the end of the Jurassic period. Triassic to Jurassic, number 3, number 6. The short-tailed and long-headed pterodactyloid, number 2, short tail and long head, appeared before the rhamphorhynchoids disappeared, so they lived after the rhamphorhynchoids. Number 4, existed later than the other pterosaur, and survived until the end of the Cretaceous period. So therefore the Jurassic to the Cretaceous, number 5. So rhamphorhynchoids, number 3 and number 6, and pterodactyloids, number 2, 4, and 5. Got it? Again, these are the smaller points, the details, the facts, the small details that support the bigger points. And the two bigger points here are rhamphorhynchoids and pterodactyloids. And those two support the main point, which is pterosaurs. Okay, think of it like kind of like a system with everything supporting the top and each level doing its own piece of support. Read page 98, 99, and 100. Page 100 is long. You must read it. Very important. It tells you how to find the answer, the techniques, but also the point system, how many points you get for these on TOEFL, an actual TOEFL test. All right, let's do one passage here, sand dunes. A sand dune is, I guess in Korean it's sagu, a sand mountain in a desert. We call it a sand dune. Go ahead, page 101, read and answer the box. Fill in the box on page 101. Go ahead. Okay, there's 3 basic kinds of dunes: ridge dunes, star-shaped dunes, and crescent dunes. Paragraph 2, ridge dunes, what do we know about them? There are large amounts of sand and in the interior, in the middle of desert, and the winds blow in one direction. So lots of large amounts, huge volumes of sand, large amounts of sand. That's number 4. Large volumes of sand and winds blow in winds blow in one direction, large volumes of sand. Okay, large amounts of sand, number 4. And number 6, it's a ridge, obviously, a ridge of sand in the middle. The interior means the middle. Again, here, the key is to look for synonyms. Interior, middle, large volume, large amount, and one direction winds. Ridge dune, number 4 and number 6. The next is the star-shaped dunes. Massive amounts of sand in the desert interior, and the wind comes from many different directions. This is 3. Form when winds from various directions, many different directions, various, blow over large volumes of sand. 3. The last one is crescent dune. Crescent, like a crescent moon, right? Like a croissant, which means crescent. On the edges of deserts. So the edge is sort of the outside, the beginning, or the end, either one. But where the desert starts to fade out in one direction and begin in the other. Where there is less sand and the winds blow in one direction. This is number 2. Winds from one direction blow over less or small amounts of sand. And number 7, in the edge, not in the middle or not in the interior. So ridge dune, number 4 and 6, star-shaped dune, number 3, and crescent dunes, number 2, and number 7. All right, I want you to do the rest for homework now. Passages 2, 3, and 4. Page 102, a surprising connection. Page 103, carnivorous plants. That's quite interesting. And page 104, William Faulkner, a very famous American novelist. So that's it, just those three. Then stop there. Okay, at page 104, stop. We're going to do these review exercises together next week, kind of as a test practice. So after you finish page 104, stop, review, and I'll go over the answers in next week's lecture video. All right, let's move on. Page 167, Beck. Where are we? Page 167, Skill 5, Passage 4, Physiology, Fractures. Okay, physiology means studying the human body. Physical education, learning body and health and fitness. So physiology is what you study if you want to be a doctor. You're studying about the human body. Okay, the physical body, human body, physiology. Fracture means a break. When you break a bone in your body, that's called a fracture. Now the key here is there are two ways that fractures are distinguished. That's the main point here. If you go to page 595, you can look at the scripts on page 595. Broken bones, fractures. Now, again, the key here when we go over it is there are two ways. One, how many breaks? Two, how severe? More breaks doesn't always mean more serious. It could, but not always. Right? Number 11 is C, different ways that bones can break. A, no, it's not just simple and compound. There's many others. There's the green stick, there's the number of breaks. A, no. B, also this is half. Yes, one issue here is how many breaks, but the other issue is how serious. So B is only half of the main point. D, way too broad. Medical condition, no, medical condition could be anything, stomach and head, bones, anything. So D is way too broad. C, different kinds, different ways that bones can break. How many breaks and how severe? Number 12, partial fracture is known as green stick. Okay, like a green stick, a new plant. New plants, green, very young and new, they can bend much more. Just like little children have much more flexibility. The bones aren't as hard, so their bones can flex more. A simple fracture is complete fracture of a bone, broken bone, but no broken skin. It doesn't come out through the skin. And compound fracture is a complete fracture, bone broken, but it comes out through the skin. Ugh, okay. Number 13, easiest question I think in the whole book. B, C, and D. Double is 2, multiple is many, numerous, and single is 1. B, C, and D. Number 14, the least serious is the green stick fracture. The most serious is the compound, where the bone sticks through the skin, of course. And the serious one is a simple fracture, just also very serious. Sometimes you watch sports and you might see like where a leg bends the wrong way. Or I remember a football game once when I was a young boy, American football game on TV where the quarterback, the guy throwing the ball, was jumped on by a couple of very big, heavy guys, and his ankle actually bent down and it kind of formed a 45-degree angle. His ankle was like this, and this was his leg, and his foot was sort of flat on the ground. Ugh. They showed it on TV. It was pretty awful to see, but every now and then you see that. That's a compound fracture because the bone actually comes out and the leg or the arm or the finger bends the wrong way. Okay, I won't show you a video of that. I don't think you want to see it. All right, skill 6, understanding relationships. Now, this is inference. Remember with reading, you infer. It doesn't state directly, but you must infer the information to understand it properly. Skill 6 is simply listening for inference. Okay, what do the speakers imply? What do you, the listener, what do you infer? Go ahead and listen to the example here. Campus parking and answer number 1. Go ahead. Okay, what will the man most likely do? Okay, there's 2 options here. You can get a daily sticker, or you can get a whole semester sticker, a parking sticker for the whole semester. And he says, I have classes almost every day of the week, so I know what I've got to do. It makes sense to get the permanent or the full semester parking sticker. Otherwise, he pays every day, it'll cost much, much more. D, get a permanent sticker. He doesn't say, I will get a permanent sticker. He implies it. You must listen and infer it. Well, he comes to school every day, so it makes way more sense to get a permanent sticker. That's what he will do. Infer that. Please read page 168, 169. Look at the box on page 169, the shaded box, very important. But do that for homework, but now let's go ahead and do some practice here. Okay, number 1, a placement test. To place something is to put it. You know, I placed my papers on the desk. I put them on the desk. So a placement test is a test that you take to be placed in a certain level, right? You do well on the test, you go to the top level class. You know, medium well, middle, and then low, you go to the bottom level class. That's a placement test. So let's listen to the student consulting with her advisor about this placement test. Go ahead. What is implied? Oh, the scripts are on page 596. And what is implied about the placement test? He says, it's to your advantage to take the placement test, but you don't have to. It's optional. You don't have to means it's optional, means D. Not all students take it. Some students won't bother. If you don't take it, you just go into the most basic level, the beginner level. And number 2, she says, I can save myself an entire semester long course, so save the time and the money if I take the test and do as well as I think I can. A. So she's gonna take the test, she's gonna try to get a good score and go up to the next level course. So she doesn't have to take a whole semester course that's not necessary for her. Okay, that one was pretty short and easy, but I strongly advise that you listen to it again later, as I put in this morning's email. Passage 2, a term paper. Term paper is the paper you write at the end of the semester. Term means semester, same, hakki. So in a lot of classes, you'll have one big paper that you write. That's the main assignment for the semester, your term paper. Go ahead. Well, the professor says, thanks for stopping by. What does that mean? Always listen right at the beginning when you see this kind of conversation. Professor, student in the professor's office. Why is the student there? He's not there for fun or for chit chat. Either he wanted to see the professor to ask questions, or the professor wanted to see him to talk about something. The professor says, thanks for stopping by. D, she asked him to come. She said, I'd like you to come to the office. I need to talk to you about something. Exactly. Comes out right at the beginning. Number 4, she says, well, you have a good topic and lots of interesting ideas here, but the outline itself could be better. Number 4 is B. The outline is not as good as it could be. The outline could be better. Passage 3, again, I suggest you listen again on your own time. But let's move on to passage 3, botany. Botany is the study of plants. Remember, zoology is the study of animals. Botany is plants, trees and flowers and plants and so on. Okay, conifers. Do you know what a conifer is? If you don't, at least you know one thing, it's some kind of plant. Plant, flower, tree, something like that. Okay? A tree is just a big, huge plant. Go ahead. Botany conifers, page 171. Oh, before you start, look at the picture. Right? See, it's the gentleman in the picture is the professor. The professor is giving a lecture. So you can expect that you're only going to hear one voice. You're going to hear a lecture here, not a discussion or a seminar. Probably only or almost only the professor's voice. Go ahead. So in Korea, in the fall, you have the danpung, which is very beautiful. The danpung is the beautiful fall colors. Well, those colors come from trees where the leaves change colors. Some leaves, as we know here and all over the world, in countries that have a lot of trees, you have the fall colors, but then you have some trees that stay green all year. Those are evergreens or conifers. The other are called deciduous, and the deciduous trees are trees that change color and then the leaves fall down, creating the autumn colors, the danpung. The evergreens are called conifers because they have cones, C-O-N, conifer, C-O-N-E, cone, solbangul, like a pine cone. And those cones, of course, contain the seeds. All right, so if you listen at the beginning, it's kind of tricky here because you're focusing on the lecture, but always listen to everything in the talk. It's all relevant, it's all important. And always listen carefully at the beginning, at the end, and at the end. Okay, here's a perfect example of what can happen. Today I'll be talking about the information in chapter 22 from the text, the chapter on conifers. You should have read the chapter already and turned in the answers to the 10 questions at the end of the chapter. So they're beginning the lecture, and your homework for this lecture from last week, last class, was to read the chapter, answer the questions, and submit. Hand me your answers before class. Now we'll talk about it. Okay? Pretty basic homework style assignment. Now look at the end. That's all for today. For the next class, you should read the next chapter, chapter 23, and do the same with it that you did with the chapter for today. In other words, read the chapter, answer the 10 questions, and hand them in to me at the beginning of next class. Number 6 is C. Turn in written answers to the 10 questions in the next chapter. Okay? C. Number 6, C. Now that's tricky. That is inferred. He doesn't say exactly that. He infers that. You take the information at the beginning and you combine it with the information at the end, and you can get the answer C. But the rule here is listen very carefully at the beginning. There's always important information. Number 5 is B. Okay, their ability to survive drought. D-R-O-U-G-H-T is drought. Drought means a long period with no water or not enough water, very little water. Drought is a very, very serious thing, of course. All living things need water, especially plants and trees and whatnot. If you don't have water, you cannot grow. But the conifers can survive drought, and that's why they are the oldest and the biggest trees in the world. Very, very interesting. I enjoyed this talk quite a bit. Okay, I think you should listen again. I strongly recommend you listen to this talk again. If there's anything confusing, anything you don't know, any words that I didn't mention in the class notes, please ask me in your email this week. Homework, just one thing. Wow. Economics presentation, page 172, okay? Listen to the talk and answers number 7, number 8, number 9, and then stop. The listening and the reading I want to do together with you next week in the video. I want us to work together, so stop at page 172. We're going to do these review exercises together in the lecture video. It's kind of a good exam practice. Okay, that's all. Great job, everyone. If you have questions at all about today's lecture, email me and ask at any time. And when you finish the lecture, finish the work, get everything done, send me your email before Thursday at 5. The sooner the better. Yeah, we'll go from there. Next week, I'll give you a little more information about the upcoming final exam. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye.